What's going on, guys? My name is Joe. This is the Duel Factory, and this will be the first upload that I've had in quite some time. I think it's been two and a half months. I just haven't really been playing the game or anything like that, and I wasn't very interested in it. But recently, I've been brought back into it just because, one, I actually really like the Despia deck, and we're also getting new support for it here at the end of this week. So I thought it would be a good time to showcase what I've played in the last couple tournaments. I've played in a regional, and I've played in two local tournaments with it. The regional, arguably, I didn't do very good. And then the two locals I played a 44 card list. And then this last one I played was a 40 card list and had same records. I finished 3-1. So I figured I'd show you what I'm playing. And also, it's another good time to show it too, because the most recent YCS Charlotte, Andres Torres, he had a top 8 finish and he played a 45 card list. But enough about that. If you want to see the other two lists that I did play, there will be links in the description below showing you all 3 lists that I've played in the past 2 weeks or so. Yeah, enough about that. Let's get into the deck profile. So this is pre-structure deck. I'll also be posting another list after the structure deck, but for now, let me show you what I was playing. So we played 3 copies of Albaz, Despia. It's your best normal summon in your deck, and it searches your branded spells and traps. It also has another effect that whenever a non-fairy fusion, it's a, I believe it actually just has to be a fusion. Whenever it leaves the field, you can target a monster on the field, on your opponent's side of the field, and then negate its effect and special summon this card back. So it's honestly, it's a very good utility card, and it gets a lot better when Branded Fusion comes out. We also have 3 copies of Despian Tragedy, I'm sorry. This one searches all your Despian monsters when sent to the grave by card effect, or like Fusion Summon or anything like that, or banished for that matter. And then when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to reset your branded spells and traps, so that's how you get like your spell and traps recurred and stuff like that, and your Fusion spells, which is really important. No, it's also really good with Fusion Destiny, and one of the reasons why Fusion Destiny is a 1-card starter in your deck. And then the 2 one-of Despia monsters, we play 1 Dramaturge and 1 Ad Libitum. This is more or less a reborn, and then this is just a free body that you use whenever you fusion summon. I think it's actually really important to play the one because it lets you push for game. I also think it's important to play this, especially if you're going first. I do arguably side it out a lot, but I think right now this is the perfect lineup for the Despia monsters. I think it will change whenever the structure deck comes out, but I will, like I said, I'll post those changes whenever I get my hands on the structure deck, which should be the end of this week, so. And then on to the Destiny Hero monsters, we play 2 copy of Malicious and then 1 copy of Denier. Unlike most Destiny Hero packages, where they play the 1 Celestial and the 1 Dasher, I opt to play this. Mainly because having these cards in your deck gives you a 1-card starter in Fusion Destiny, for that way you see access to your Despia cards. Because the big flaw of this deck is, like, if you don't see any of your Despia cards, you can't actually win the game. And Fusion Destiny mitigates this by being able to send Mally and Tragedy, because it can make Destiny Hero dangerous and you continue to play from there. Plus, having the Denier and the Malicious also gives you extra fusion materials for Brandon and Red, so that way you being able to make Guardian Chimera is more viable in your turns and stuff like that. For the rest of the monsters, we play 3 copies of Edge of Chain. I am playing the Frightfur package in here. It's really good. It gives you a consistent way to get to polymerization, which classic line ain't fusing. If you're not fusing, you're losing, and it's 100% true. And then Edge of Chain, like, it's weird. The Frightfur cards fill a very particular role in the deck, which is basically just like your advantage engine and having access to poly, and it's really nice. And then for the hand traps, my hand trap line is what I'm only playing 8, so I opted to play 3 copies of Effect Veiler. I also opted to play 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being, if I can get him to not stick. There we go. 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being, and then I also played 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. So all 8 of these hand traps have the same thing in common as what they're all light monsters. I decided to play these because I thought these were the most impactful hand traps for a local setting, not necessarily regional or a YCS setting. Notably, in my previous 2 builds, I did play Ash Blossom, but I decided not to play it in the 3rd tournament, mainly because, one, I didn't think I was going to see Prank Kids, and that's where I think that card's only good because it stops the Prank Kid. But like I said, I thought these hand traps had the most utility, and they all search the same thing in common, which they're light monsters, which can be used to make any of the Despia monsters. And that is it for the actual monsters themselves. Onto the spells. We play 3 copies of Branded Opening. This is more or less Emergency Teleport. And another thing to note, the where it reads discard 1 card, and then that's not a cost. That's an actual card effect. So like if you discard like Despian Tragedy or something like that, its effect will activate. I only play 2 copies of Brandon in Red. I really like this card. The problem is it's like 2 of them in your hand don't do anything by themselves. And that was one of the cards. I was playing it at 3 originally, and then I cut it so that way I could make it a 40 card list. You can also reset the card with like Despia and Tragedy, and you have access to it almost whenever you want, so that's why I decided to play 2. And it was a perfect number. I never needed more, any less, or anything like that. 1 copy of Despia Theater of the Branded. You should play 1 copy of it. It's essentially just a polymerization that you get every single turn. It also has a secondary effect. When a non-fairy fusion monster leaves the field or something, or a non-fusion fairy monster, sorry, I keep saying it backwards, leaves the field, it can target a level 8 or higher fusion monster in your graveyard and special summon it back. Which is really cool because when they deal with your Phoenix Enforcer is a level 8, so you can actually revive it. There was one match I played against a very questionable Sky Striker player. We're not going to get into that. But he let me revive Phoenix Enforcer 3 times in one game, so that was really cool. So don't sleep on that card. It's really good, and honestly, I think it's a solid one of the deck. 2 copies of Fusion Destiny. It's really impactful in this deck in particular because it is a 1-card starter for your actual Despia engine. Because we play Destiny Hero Dangers, so you're allowed to send, You're allowed to send Despia and Tragedy, which allows you to search your Albaz and give you access, like, your field spell to Brandon and Rat, like, whatever. It just depends on what your hand is. And continuing with the theme of 1-card starters, Foolish Burial, you need to play it. Not much to be said. Right now, without Branded Fusion, your deck is, like, starved for starters. And even after the structure deck, you're still, like, slim on starters. So I feel like it's necessary to play as many, like, opening cards as you possibly can. One thing this deck has that I really like going for it is it can play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. It pairs really, really well with Albaz, especially with your fusion monsters, because it cracks. One of the nice things I like about it is if you play this card and you go second against any deck that's playing the Scythe DPE combo, and they say, like, they Scythe lock you, it's really cool because you can summon an Albaz. They're probably not going to do anything to it, and then you can set the Super Poly going to the following turn, and then you just play on their turn. And you can use their monsters plus your Albaz to make, like, cards such as Despian Proskinian, I think it's called. And then you can revive their DPE. And you can do... So there's a bunch of crazy stuff you can do with Super Poly. That's why I really like it in this deck. We're also playing 3 copies of Fright for Patchwork. Card is insane in this deck because it just gives you more fusion materials. And it also gives you access to your one of your 3 copies of Polymerization. But yeah, not much to say on that. And that is the main deck. Like I said, this list I slimmed down to 40. I originally played... the Brave cards in it, but I decided not to. And then the second list played 44 cards, and then I slimmed it down to 40. And then on to your fusion monsters. Currently I'm playing 3 copies of Masquerade, the Blazing Dragon. I was originally only playing 2, but I think it's right now pre-structure deck. I think it's necessary to play 3. 1, because it's probably the best card against your worst matchup, which is the Flunder matchup. And 2, a lot of people forget that other than its incredible burn effect, it also has a floating effect, where if your opponent controls essentially anything summoned out of the extra deck, you can special summon the card out of the graveyard, but banish it, leave with the field. And that actually does come up, especially when you're doing, like, your Brandon and Red Blaze and stuff like that, because it puts an extra body on the field for a Guardian Chimera play if you need to go into it. So right now, pre-structure deck, we're playing 3. After the structure deck, like I said, I will post the list whenever I get that, but it either goes down to 2 or 1. I'm not 100% sure yet, though. 1 Despian Quartus, or whatever it's called. I don't know how to pronounce it. You only need 1 of it. It's essentially your floater, and it also makes everything 0 that's not a level 8 or higher fusion monster, which is really cool because Brandon Red says you can't attack directly with the monster fusion summon that turn, but if you summon this and, like, 0 everything out, it doesn't matter. The other card I was talking about, Despian Proskinian. Normally you only summon this card when you use Super Poly, or if you're doing, like, a very weird Brandon Red play. But essentially what it does is it can target essentially any monster summoned from the extra deck, and then it can either, from your opponent's graveyard, and it can either banish it or summon to your side of the field. So, like, if you Super Poly a player who Scythe comboed you, you can use this effect. You can actually target the DPE that you sent off Super Poly and bring it to your side of the field, and then when you attack with both of them, that's 6k damage, and then once you're done with the DPE, you can actually Brandon Red it away. So that way, like, if you need to use, like, the pop effect or anything like that, you essentially, what ends up happening is you use the pop effect to DPE, you brand it away, it banishes it, and then if you want to, you can make the level 8 fusion, the Quartus, and then you can kill your opponent that way, which is really cool because that monster can 0 everything out. But there's some really cool stuff you can do with it, so there's that. And then the 2 Destiny Heroes, we have to play, since we're playing the Mally and the Denier, you have to play Destiny Hero Dangers because it makes your Fusion Destiny a 1-card starter. And then the best card in the game right now, I think, is Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Not much to say about that one. Your deck utilizes this card a lot better than most decks do currently, I personally think, so I think that's one of the best like highlights to play this deck. But one of my favorite cards that I've seen recently is Guardian Chimera. For those of you who don't know, its effect is, one, so people quit doing this to me, when polymerization's in the graveyard, it can't be targeted. And then two, whenever it's fusion summoned with a spell effect, it can It can destroy cards on the field up to the number of monsters used on the field to fusion summon with it, and then you can draw cards equal to the number of cards that you use from your hand to fuse with it. And the best part about that, like, it doesn't target or anything like that. So like your opponent, like when you declare the effect, your opponent has to respond to it right there and then. And it works really, it pairs very, very well with cards like Brandon Red. Note, you cannot super poly for this card. I had a couple people try doing that to me, and I'm like, you can't, because it has to be materials from your hand or your field. And super poly does not use anything from the hand. Unless you're using chain material, but that's a different story. And then for super poly targets, one copy of Mud Dragon and the Swamp. This is really good against base. Mainly because it stops them from doing their Auroradon combos and stuff like that. I can go over that later, but just know it's really good in that matchup. One copy of Draco Stapelia. This card becomes better at post-structure deck, and then Starting Venom Fusion Dragon. I've seen a lot of people cutting this card, but I'm not gonna lie, it was probably like the most made card in my extra deck via Super Poly if I had to crack a board, so I don't know if I would cut it or not. And then for the Link monsters, we play one copy of Anima. I was playing this and Link Kariba, but then I just decided to cut it and just play Anima because it is more or less serves the same purpose. One copy of the Dark Charmer, just essentially to take opposing DPEs. And then one copy of Anaconda if I need access to any of my fusion spells. And that was my Despia deck profile pre-Albaz structure deck. I will be posting another profile whenever we do get the Albaz structure deck, because like I said, a lot of things weren't interesting me in this game, but this deck particularly, especially now that we have it, has brought my interest back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm hoping to do more and more deck profiles and more combo videos, maybe some duel videos, I don't know. But this is Joe from the Duel Factory. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.